Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Star Wars Minute. It's your daily podcast in which we analyze, we scrutinize, and we celebrate The Last Jedi, one rosy minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
And I'm Tim the Barnes, a comedian, a writer. You can find me on Twitter at TimBarnes451. That's the temperature at which jokes burn. And I also co-host a Star Wars podcast called Yub Nub with a couple other comedy writers, just sort of a casual pontificating about Star Wars-related things in our lives during quarantine. So very excited to be here.
Well, I hope, even though we'll be rivals, I think they're
no, definitely
we'll be the two
not.
biggest Star Wars podcasts duking it out for top
I
spots.
reached out to be on this podcast because this is one of my favorite Star Wars podcasts.
Right.
I don't know how I discovered it, but I often find myself in a lull in my life where it's like there's no one near me who can talk about Star Wars, and I just need people in my ears who can talk about it. And the fact that you dedicate so much time to 1 minute of Star Wars content is I will champion you two forever.
Oh, well, we're really happy to have you here on the show to talk about minute 41 of The Last Jedi. Minute 41 starts off with Rose Tico noticing that Finn has put a packed bag in the escape pod, and it ends a minute later with FN 2187 showing Rose Tico his flashing beacon.
What a scene. What a scene you guys got me started on this podcast with. This is sort of the...
Might as well throw you right in the deep end here. Get the controversy out of the way.
This is sort of the beginning of where... And I love The Last Jedi mostly, but this is the beginning of where I start to feel a little wobbly, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
I could see that.
Yeah. It's... we're definitely kind of shifting gears here. We had a build up, and it's now we're that kind of the hard time with Star Wars always putting exact pins in the act breaks, but this is definitely like, okay, now we're starting a new plot for some people, and we're gonna go with this for a little bit. But I do love. There's a lot of things to love in here. I love Rose's kind of turn that she goes from like 0 to 60 as far as she's totally like a Finn fangirl.
Finn
fangirl. And as soon as she sees what's up, she's just kind of like turns on him, like probably with, more venom than she would have if it was somebody else. She's probably just like, you too, and double zapped him essentially.
Well, especially because she's still wrestling with the death of her sister. So I'm sure having someone to lash out at was very convenient.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I really like the beginning of their dynamic here. And John Boyega, Finn does this thing at the beginning where he kind of puts his arm up to cover his backpack or whatever. And that is like some of my favorite stuff that he does. It's like a hint of Han Solo, oddly, maybe a little bit of Luke Skywalker in some ways with the sort of bumbliness of it all. But that beginning of their dynamic is really, really fun.
He's definitely like a Luke who likes to think he's a Han. Finn.
Well, that's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, so we never saw Luke really go through this stage in the movies because he went from being like meeting Han to being starstruck to then becoming a Jedi. So thankfully we never got to see Luke trying to be cool. The period right after New Hope, that would have been the maximum amount of Luke being like, "See, Han, you see what I did? All right, cool." Right. Him, especially because he used to be wormy and everything. Like Luke totally would have went through an awkward stage before he did the Jedi thing. So we're seeing to see Finn go through that, and it's awkward and cringy and funny.
Yeah, and he's really good at it. He's good. He doesn't fail on the comedy in this at all. I mean, he doesn't fail at all. None of the complaints about what happens with Finn and with Rose are the fault of the actors. They're doing a great job with what they have. I think it's,
I don't know. I heard that Kelly Marie Tran, she totally improvised the whole Canto Bite thing, so they had to come up with sets and all this stuff.
Right. They're like, I guess I got a yes and this. Now they're in a casino. I know.
Yeah. She actually made up those giant horses. I forget what they're called, but she made that up, and then they had to build it. Yeah.
She's like that kid in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Everything. She's, boy, it sure would great to have a giant animal race right now. And they all have to go about doing it. So yes, other than Kelly Marie Tran wishing it all into existence, none of the actors are responsible for what happens.
Right. Yeah, absolutely not.
But Then we got another shot of the beacon, the cloaked binary beacon in the hallway, which was minutes ago. Well, to us it was a week or two ago, but just minutes ago, it was Leia being carted through the hallway and had it, and then she dropped it for Finn, and then Finn picked it up, and now he's being carted through the hallway with the beacon too, and it's an interesting kind of little parallel.
Yeah, and that's where they really start to narrow down what this dynamic between these two characters is going to be. And when I was looking at this, I realized that like, oh, clearly these two characters have sort of the plot that maybe isn't necessarily exciting to me, but I can imagine children really enjoying. It's almost like they are sort of having the plot you would expect C-3PO and R2-D2 to have.
Yeah,
is what
some slapstick in it.
Yeah. Especially in the minute after this, there's a particular thing that happens where I'm like, oh, okay, I get what's going on. Yeah.
And kids love their cloaked binary beacons. They're all about that.
I remember that summer, everyone was wearing them like around their wrists. You give them to your friends. And
you get a good mood beacon. You can tell your friend is a little ticked off or really happy.
Do they make something like that? They have, right? They should if they don't. I mean, I know merchandising for this movie might have been not what they expected, but they should definitely make like basically a using Bluetooth or whatever, they can make it so that it's, a pair of things. When you get them closer to each other, they're beeping a lot and then, blinking a lot. And when you move them apart, they're just, they're kind of quiet. They should be able to do that, right? Don't they do that? It's like a best friends, locket or something like that.
I don't know if the beacon really got the popularity that you hoped that it did. But
well, it also seems like that would be something that would be much easier to do on a phone nowadays.
Yeah,
than having a distinctive extra piece of, radioactive hardware on your wrist.
Right. I guess. It's no Japor snippet, I'll give it that.
That's true. Those Japor snippets would be super cheap to make too, so. Speaking of which, Finn is carrying a backpack with him.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like the panel to speculate as to what Finn has in that backpack, because we know he came from the First Order just wearing his stormtrooper uniform, which he abandoned on Jakku.
Mm.
So what does he have in there?
What does he have? And probably some food.
Yeah, some lambus
maybe
bread.
He still has lambus bread. Yeah, he still has some stormtrooper rations. I don't know what stormtroopers eat. Maybe it's sort of like the toothpaste that astronauts eat or something like that. He's already wearing his jacket.
That dry ice cream.
Right.
Have we seen underwear in Star Wars? All I can think of is maybe Luke in the Bacta tank. Is he wearing his underwear there?
Those are regulation back to medical shorts, not underwear.
But I imagine it's definitely underwear. The kind of adventure he's setting off on. Yeah. You want to have a few extra pair.
Yeah. I don't. Or I'm imagining maybe he just kind of. It's his first time kind of seeing all this stuff, so maybe he just kind of raided the First Order supply cabinet. He's just like, oh, check it out. They got those good pens and like everything. He's just,
Yeah, and since he's used to living in the First Order, where everyone just takes whatever they want, there's no private property in the First Order, so he just assumes that. I was thinking it would be funny if it was all like she dumped it out, and it was all like the Seeker Ball from the Millennium Falcon and C-3PO's red arm, and like all like iconic Star Wars things that he was like stealing.
Right. Like a Raftar tentacle.
Yeah, stuff like that. Obi-Wan's cape. Has anyone ever done a story what happened to Obi-Wan's cape that was left on the Death Star? That's a tale waiting to be told.
Have the Darth Vader comics not commented on that? That should be. Wait, is it a cape? I mean, it's like he's wearing a robe, right?
His whole I guess assuming his Jedi underwear and everything. I assume is the theme of the episode is.
Well, I don't know. Does it all disappear, or is it just his, like, what's left? It could just be his outer cloak. Like, does he get to bring anything with him? Or he can just manifest his outfit once he becomes...
He is wearing the cloak when we see him as a ghost, so I don't know if the cloak also died, and so now the cloak is with him in heaven.
That's also a big question. I don't know if this is jumping ahead, but with Luke Skywalker at the end of this movie, the question of what happens to his robot hand. Does it go with him? Does it fall? And then when you see his ghost in the sequel to this movie, you never see that hand. It's like always hidden by his jacket or something, or it's in his pocket. So
They didn't want to weigh in. They didn't want to weigh in on that theological discussion as to whether his hand would be restored or whether he would still be part.
That
robot.
does make me think that, like, what if they have to, like, if that other part of the, like, Obi-Wan's cloak, like, he had to wait until they incinerated it before he could meet back up with it in the Force Ghost land. Like, he's standing around naked, being like
shivering in front of the pearly gates.
Yeah.
This just gave me a very disturbing image of Darth Vader trying on his former master's outfit.
I wonder what it smelled like.
He's mocking it. He's like, "Oh, look at me! I'm Obi-Wan. I'm going to take somebody and train them."
Oh, hello there. Hello there.
Who has the upper hand now? Yeah.
But yeah, then I do like the idea of Luke, you know, same idea. Like, Luke can't meet back up with his missing hand because it hasn't been destroyed yet. Like, it's out there and somebody's, you know, it's in a jar somewhere, and he's like, "Oh, would they just throw that thing out so I can get it back?" Yeah.
That's like a Star Wars story. It's like almost like it's this. His ghost is trapped here on Earth until that hand is destroyed, and then his spirit can finally be freed.
Right.
That would be
Can
like.
we please pitch this in? I like the idea of his robot hand being like, was it Thing from the Addams Family?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
And it's living on the island with the caretakers and the porgs, and there's just like a robot hand going around.
I'm going to say the robot hand meets up with the Borg, who then enhance it and send it out to find its owner to see, and then so basically,
right.
Yeah.
Robot hand is that which seeks the creator.
Yes,
Star Wars basically boils down to theories about Luke Skywalker's hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, the Disney era very low on dismemberments. Like
that's
Disney.
I feel like they're kind of like maybe trying to leave that behind in the Lucas era. That's like they're kind of like that's
they're
like their trademark.
Missing hands, that's a Lucas thing. Dead missing parents, that's us. We got it.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Stick with what you know.
Yeah.
We see Rose. She stuns Finn with like a stun gun. Do we see anyone stunned in hand-to-hand combat with anything like this in any other Star Wars scenes? Seems like it would come in handy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never see that device. What is it? A sonic screwdriver that she has?
So you think it's just a tool that it's not intended to stun people. It's not like a taser. She's just using like a wrench or whatever the equivalent.
But it's an electroshock prod, according to the back of the visual dictionary, which is currently sitting to my left. After I chastised you, Alex, for not having it, I found it in my home, and I realized I was the one who had it. So,
can we get some clarity on Rose's job description?
Oh,
we can. I have to look it up though. I forgot what she's.
I'm just trying to figure out if she is required to have this electroshock rod, or
she's technically a flight technician.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think
she
was technician. That's what I wanted to say, but
she's a mechanic, a technician.
I love this. I love that you just have the encyclopedia handy.
Hey,
Peter, you're looking at Wikipedia.
It only took me 8 years to say, maybe I should keep that within arm's reach while I'm doing the show instead of 10 feet away. So also the question was, does the Raddus have security? That Rose is in charge of this? Is there no one? No, I'm sure she's clearly doing a great job, but seems like it would be a little distracting from maintaining the ship to have to be constantly zapping people.
Yeah. So, they do have a brig. She says, that's where she's taking him.
So I had another question about.
I don't know is that a makeshift brig? Do they just take like a hangar pod somewhere else and be like, well, that would be funny if they're like, all right, we're putting you in the brig. The brig is this other escape pod. Don't launch it. There's a bunch of guys who are trying to escape, and they're like,
Yeah, and who else is in the brig? That's a good question.
Well, there's only 400 people left, they say. So like it seems like kind of like people should be allowed to desert at this point. If you're down to 400 people, like, you guys, we're probably all going to die. So if anyone can get out of this alive, more power to you. We'll meet up with the rendezvous point. How about that?
Godspeed, rebels. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Well, whether or not Rose actually, her job requires her to have this device that can stun people, that is like a great cliffhanger moment when she does, and I love the way the camera kind of backs away. It's this great cliffhanger that ideally would cut to another scene with other characters, but then it cuts to them also still interacting, which is kind of like, oh, we're still following this plot,
It's
Yeah, I do love that window. I do love the shot of him coming back up against the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, I like it, and this is really well. I don't have to make excuses here. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
In the escape pod in A New Hope, when C-3PO are in R2 and they look out the window and he says, "Oh, the damage doesn't look so bad from up here." That's the same window that we're looking in to see Finn get slammed up against the window. So it's kind of I don't know. I thought that was kind of a neat little
Right.
awareness of I love when we see the other sides of things that we don't normally. You know what I mean? Like when we see. Yeah, anyway.
Right. Different angles.
It's
from-
like poetry. It rhymes. I get what you're saying.
Exactly. It's like a big circle, like a ring. It rhymes like a ring.
Well, speaking of rhyming, I was thinking that would it have been better if this was a running gag? If Rose stunning Poe, zapping Poe and stunning him was a running gag, that like anytime they were like, like they get down to the planet and Rose is like, "I hate this place. It's terrible." And he's like, "This is the best." And he goes to like run off to go like, gamble. And she just like zapped him and stunned him. And then like cut to a couple minutes later. It's like, okay. Focused on the job now.
I think that would be awesome. I think that leans into what you were saying about C-3PO, treating him as if he was C-3PO.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is sort of that. And then you got me thinking she never uses this again throughout the movie. You imagine she still has it. Does she use it again?
Again, that would have come in handy maybe on the Star Destroyer or something.
Yeah.
Well, maybe when she got arrested, they might have confiscated it. That's probably what happened.
True. Yeah.
Even if she did bring it. So.
Yeah.
She brings up the fact that her sister just died.
Right.
Because of Poe Dameron's arrogance. Now someone should really teach him a lesson about doing what he's told and not deviating from the plan. Finn says, I have to get... So his reason he gives for wanting to in the escape pod was that Rey is going to eventually come to where this beacon is. So she's basically going to walk into this trap. And so he's like, I got to get this beacon off the ship. Is there some reason they can't just send the beacon in the escape pod and send that out? And then Finn could be like, "Oh, well, I guess I have no legitimate reason to leave now," or is that... Like, can't they just throw the beacon out into space or, like, put it on a rocket or something?
To find it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but clearly he really just wants to get off the ship, but he just doesn't want to say that. He's like,
Or, like somebody should have, Rose should have been like, "All right, I'll go find your friend for you." And he should have been like, "Oh, well.
What's her name? Rey? Rey what? Skywalker."
It does, not that it opens a can of worms, but like once they start bringing in like kind of jetting in and out of here without, like it kind of undoes a little bit of the tension of the plot, which is, one of the legitimate complaints about this is just like, all right, well, if you start poking at it, it falls apart pretty quickly that this slow speed chase with running out of fuel and they're just going in a straight line and they like, why don't they just hyperspace jump, 10 feet in front of them? And, all this, like, if they can take a little ship and go through hyperspace, why not just pack everybody into a little ship, go to hyperspace, like fill up on gas, come back, fill up, keep shuttling people off of there. But, again, it's best not to think about that if, it's that thing that somebody just posted that if the movie makes you care enough, you don't care about the details. Basically, I forgot whose quote it was, but it was like, people will forgive a lot more a lot more stuff that doesn't make sense for getting the characters into trouble than they will for getting them out or something like that. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things in the plot of this movie that, if you think about it too hard, get very strange. And oddly, most of it has to do with hyperspace. So.
Yeah, well, I'm on record as not being a fan of any of the Radis storyline stuff. So I won't belabor the point. Having them being tracked and having a tracking device that he's trying to get somewhere. Multiple tracking devices. Anyway, like I said, I won't belabor the point. Yeah. So
well, speaking of the tracking device,
yes.
We find out, and not to jump ahead into the week, but we find out that Rose is kind of a nerd with the engineering stuff. And does she know what that cloaked binary beacon is? When he was just like, I got this and I got to go find my friend. Is she like, oh, it's a cloaked binary beacon? Or is she just like, whatever, weirdo. Like, you know.
Well, you would think that if she knows so much about the legend of Finn, that she would know more about the legend of the weird, powerful woman from a desert planet who everyone needs to is kind of relying on, you know? So I would hope in some ways that she's aware.
I don't feel like she stuck around very much. I don't think she wasn't like around the rebels very much. She kind of left as soon as she got back. So
around the rebels, Rey ran.
Run, Rey, run.
Yeah. It seems like they're, you know, rebel / resistance propaganda is making a big deal out of Finn to be like, look, a first order deserter who joined our cause. He knows, you know, he knows what's up and he's on the right side. Like, be like Finn. Whereas Rey, they're just like, I don't know, we found her somewhere.
Well, she's another loser from nowhere. You know, like, why would anyone care who she is? You know, she's you know, Jakku. Even Luke Skywalker makes fun of Jakku.
Yeah.
So, does anyone else, anything else they'd like to say about minute 41? We have a lot more Rose and Finn interplay coming up throughout most.
I think this is unless there were hints of the theme with Rose's sister, I do think that this minute is the first time we hear the Rose theme, this very positive, upbeat kind of song. And I don't know if you have that song in your head right now, but I kind of feel like this moment, there's like a moment in this minute where Finn and Rose are talking and that music starts to swell. And it's one of the rare cases in the new trilogy, especially, where it feels like John Williams' score is kind of forcing some sort of impact on the moment. It's like I would rather this first interaction with these characters to be a little more low key instead of trying to force an emotion into this into this conversation. Yeah, it's like really, it's like the hope is really ramped up with this theme in this song.
It's funny because I'm really dense when it comes to the soundtrack. It takes me a long time to kind of pick up on motifs and so I have no idea what the I'll in between episodes I might go back and check it out, but before tomorrow. But when you said it, I'm like, you're like, it's this kind of, you know, catchy, kind of like upbeat, kind of positive thing, and my mind instantly went to like Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves, and I'm like, I could see that. Like
that's a little too
playing over this scene. I'm like, okay, all right. And there's a little, you know, coming up next episode. There's a little musical montage where they try to convince Poe of their plan.
You have two montages. You have Rey training, and you have
there you go,
doing the demonstration. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
We'll say, speaking of music, I want to direct everyone to check out our friend Chrysanthi Tan's podcast and YouTube show. What's it? Star Wars Music Minute?
Yes.
Is that the name of it?
Yeah, it's kind of an adjunct, not to belittle it, of course. It's an adjunct. It's kind of running in parallel with our show.
It's a companion podcast.
Well, yeah. It's every week covering the same minutes that we're covering, but from a musical perspective, talking about the score, talking about the music. I'm sure this week there will be some talk about Katrina and the Waves. So.
So, people should check that out. And I guess that will wrap up minute 41. And hey, if you guys missed us over the weekend, become a Patreon supporter. You get tons of bonus episodes, and you could get artwork by me. You could go to a sport game now that sport games are going to become a thing again with Pete.
We'll see.
Yeah, they will. Pete says he will go to any sport event that happens anywhere in the United States, continental United States. Sorry, Alaska.
I think there's a separate tier for anywhere in the world, isn't there? I forgot.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But you said that, and it's a legally binding contract, which you can get by going to StarWarsMinute.com/Patreon. And you can join us tomorrow. Tim, can you come back tomorrow?
Yeah, for sure.
Join us tomorrow on another Star Wars Minute.
Star Wars.